last video we created a part in order to create a multi-view drawing. So if you don't still have that part open, go ahead and open it. I have mine in my PLTW project within my IED and the 1.2.3 folder. So I'll go ahead and double click on that part, get it opened up. And from here, to create a multi-view drawing, I need to go up to the top left-hand corner into my Change Workspace button, and I need to go down to Drawing and From Design. When I do that, you can see the part highlights, and then I get a Create Drawing window over here on the right. So I want to leave full assembly here for contents. I'm creating a new drawing. We don't currently have a template, so we're going from scratch. We do what ASME standard. Our unit should be inches, and for sheet size we're going to select 8.5 by 11, not 11 by 8.5. So this top option here, 8.5 by 11. I'm going to hit OK. And sometimes this can take a minute to load. And once that loads up, it's going to auto create your sheet for you. It's going to fill in the project and the title, which is the name of the part. So as long as you named everything appropriately, those things should autofill correctly for you. It's also going to automatically select that part you're making a drawing from, and it's going to automatically start the process to making the multi-view drawing. So you notice it says Place Base View here, and then if I go over to the right, I have my drawing view panel, and I have some options in here. So if you created your part correctly, this should be showing the front view of your part, which it is right now. This is the front view of my part. Over here in the panel, I can go to Orientation, and I can choose a different view. So let's say the right view, and it'll switch it over so I could place the right view into the drawing. I don't want to do that. I want to go back to the front view, and I'm going to go ahead and place this view. First though, checking my scale. So right now I'm at a 1:2 scale, so basically a half scale, which is the scale I want to be in for this part on this particular sheet size. So I'm going to leave that at 1:2. If yours isn't there, you need to make sure you change it to 1:2 before you place it. For example, if I go to 1:1, it makes this part really big, and we could technically fit it on the page, but then we wouldn't have room for any of the dimensions we want to make later on. So I'm going to change that to 1:2. I'm going to go to the bottom left-hand corner, leaving a gap in between the edges, so somewhere right around here, and I'm going to left-click and place that view. And then I'm going to go over to this panel and hit OK. Now that places the front view of my part. Now I need to create my top view, my right view, and then my isometric view as well. So I'm going to left-click on that to select it, and go up to my menu up here and go to Projected View. I could also hit P on my keyboard while I'm in a drawing to select Projected View. And now this is going to allow me to place any other views that are associated with this front view. So I can place a top view, my right view, my left view, my bottom view, and my isometric. So I'm going to go until that kind of snaps in and shows me my top view. I'm going to give myself a little gap there and left click. I'm going to do the same thing for my right view, gap and left click. And I'm going to move up and select my ISO view as well and left click. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to right click and hit OK. And that's going to place all of my views. Now, if they're not perfectly positioned, they're very easily moved, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But the one thing we want to fix is we want this isometric view to be solid and shaded. So I'm going to double click on that view, go up to Appearance and Style, and I'm going to click on this cube that looks shaded. That's going to bring in the color from our part. So if you go back to the part and update the color at a later date, it'll auto update over here, and I'll hit close. So now I have my front view, my top view, and my right view, and my isometric as well. Now if I've accidentally placed these two close to one another, if I click on it and then that square in the center, if I click and hold on that, that'll allow me to drag it around. Now it's not going to let you drag it off from the center of or from being aligned with that front view, but you can move it up and down as needed. Same thing with my right view. Click and move that over that way, and then my ISO view is not linked in line with any other view, so I can kind of move this around however I see fit and place that back down there. So now that I have all my views placed, I need to go in and put in dimensions. Now we're going to talk a lot more about dimensions coming up soon, so I just want to go through the process of how to put a dimension on a part, and then I just want you to replicate the dimensions that I add on here, and I'll walk through it a little bit as we go. So the dimension command is up here in the center of your menu. I can also hit D on the keyboard and select dimension. I'll hit escape. I could also hit S on the keyboard to get my shortcuts, and the dimension's already there because I just used it, or I could search it up as well to find that dimension command. So any of those options work. Since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and click on dimension there. And generally, you're going to start on your front view to add your dimensions. So as we talked about when we went over multi-view drawings when we were hand sketching them, there are kind of 3 different types of dimensions. You have width dimensions, which is from left to right on your front view and left to right on your top view. We have height dimensions, which are from bottom to top on your front view and bottom to top on your right view. And we have depth dimensions, which are from left to right on the right view and then from bottom to top on the top view. So I'm going to go ahead and start with width dimensions. I could really technically start wherever I wanted, but start with width, and I'm going to start on my front view. Now, ideally, your front view, and this one it is the case with this one, shows a lot of detail and means that a lot of your dimensions are going to end up being on the front view. Not all of them, but a good number of them. So I have that dimension command selected. I'm going to click on the top left corner and the top right corner of that part, and I'm going to drag that up. So I have some space in between it because I'm going to put some dimensions in between this dimension and the part, and I'm going to left click and place it. That is my overall dimension, or my overall width of this part, which is 2.5 inches. Next I'm going to go to that same top left corner, and then that next corner there, drag up until it snaps into place and left click. That gives me the width of that section. And then I'm going to do one more time from either side of this cutout. Now, one thing I want to point out, if we zoom in here, I have a gap in between my dimension line and my part, and that is what it is supposed to be. If there's not a gap, it can be confused and it looks like your dimension lines are actually part of your object or object lines. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to right click on this dimension and delete it. I could also just hit delete on the keyboard and it would get rid of it as well. So this time I'm going to hit D for dimension, and instead of picking these outside edges, I'm going to select these inside edges. So I get the same dimension, and I'm going to snap it roughly into the same spot here, a little lower so I can see it differently. But what you notice now, hit escape out of the dimension command, is that I do not have that gap in between the part and the dimension line. If I hover over that dimension line, you can see it extends all the way down to those points we selected, and the gap is down there, but because the dimension line is overlapping with an object line, we can't see any gap there, and that's what we don't want. Because now it almost looks like, if you're just glancing at it, that those dimension lines are a part of the object, and we just don't want that. So I'm going to right click on that dimension and delete it. Hit OK. I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'm going to redimension that part correctly. That snaps right in line there. The next dimension that I want to do for width is I need to dimension this kind of cutout here. So on my ISO view, this cutout. So in this particular case, I want to try to keep all dimensions kind of in between views. So instead of dimensioning that on this front view down here, I'm going to go up to this top view and dimension it here, because from left to right shows width as well. So I'm going to go in and select this bottom left corner and the inside of that cutout. Snap that into place. Now, one thing that after I've done that, one thing you might notice is that 1 is probably going to be in the way of the dimension I bring down for that cutout. So what I can do is click on that dimension, left click, and you see it shows the endpoints of this dimension. So where the square is over the number, I'm going to click and hold, left click and hold, and I'm going to drag that over to the left-hand side of the dimension. That way that number is over on the left side, and that leaves this area clear for me to add that dimension for that cutout. And I'm going to right click, and any command that you have most recently used, if you right click, it'll show up here in the top of this radial menu, so you can quickly select that command again. So I'm just going to hit repeat dimension, click the bottom left and right of that cutout, come down until it snaps in line with that other dimension, and left click and place it. So those are all the dimensions that I need for the width of this part. So next I'm going to move on to the height. So I'm going to use my front and my right view. So I'm still in the dimension command. I'm going to click this top right corner and this bottom right corner and drag that out to give myself some room and place that. And the next thing I wanted to mention is the bottom of this bottom of the part here, and I could dimension it from here to here, the better place to dimension it is over here on the right view, because it shows the feature a little bit better. Instead of being a flat line here and just, you know, a line inside this part, it actually shows the contour of that portion of the design. So I'm going to click the bottom corner and the top corner of that, drag that out and place that. So that gives me the dimension there. And the other dimension that I need is the height of this cutout. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the bottom right hand corner here, and then I'm going to click on this inside corner and drag that dimension out. And notice if you move your cursor around, it'll do it at an angle. We want to make sure we bring our cursor down so it sits perfectly vertical, and I'm going to place that view there. So notice if I zoom in here, I have that gap at the bottom. I also have the gap here on that dimension. Let me hit escape out of the dimension command. So I have that gap in between there. Even though the dimension line goes into the part, which isn't ideal, but we don't have much of a choice in this case, I still have that gap there at the top and the bottom. Now the other option would be I could right click and delete this dimension, hit OK, and hit dimension again. The other way I could have dimensioned that is from that corner I want to dimension to this outside corner. Now if I selected this inside corner, drag this out just like I showed you earlier, right click OK, I do not have a gap here on the outside of my part, so that's incorrectly dimensioned. So I'm going to right click and delete that, select it and hit OK, and I'm going to go back in, hit the dimension command, bottom right corner to the what we want to dimension, bring my cursor down so it snaps vertically, left click and place that dimension. So that's our width and height dimensions. So now we just need to do our depth dimensions. So I'm going to place my overall depth on this on the right view. So I'm going to hit dimension, click from that point to that point, drag that up. So my overall depth is 3.5, and then I'm going to dimension from here to here as well, and place that view. Now the other thing that I need to dimension is this cutout. One rule that we'll go over later is you never dimension to hidden lines, so I don't want to dimension to this line, this hidden line here. So I'm going to go to my top view, similar to how we did this cutout on the front view. I'm going to select this corner here and that corner there, drag out, bring my cursor down so it snaps vertical, place that view, and that gives me the dimension for the depth of that cutout. So now that you have all of your dimensions done, we'll zoom out. You're going to need to export this as a PDF and then submit it to Canvas. So first thing we need to do is save this. So I'm going to go up to the Save button, and we'll just call it 1.2.3 part drawing and hit Save. And that should populate over here on our folder once it saves, which we have there, which is great. Now I want to export this as a PDF. Super easy to do so. If you go to the top right hand corner to this output button, hit that drop down, we're going to output a PDF. We want to do all sheets, and if you want to look at it before you submit it, you can check open PDF and it'll open it when it saves it. I'm not too worried about that, so I'm just going to hit OK. And I'm just going to save this to my desktop as 1.2.3 part drawing, and it should be version 1. Save that to my desktop. And now that that's saved to my desktop, I can go to Canvas, go to the assignment, click the submit button, and then upload that PDF as a submission for the drawing portion of this assignment.